Hello and welcome to Faith Speaks here on WICX 102.7 Hope FM on Catholic Radio. I'm your host, Dick Patten. It's a pleasure to welcome you back here at Immaculate Heart of Mary Church on Loudon Road in the Concord Heights. And I hope you're all enjoying the spring weather, although today isn't quite springy, but it is spring and May is out there. And of course, this is a special time of the month for the Catholic Church as we get ready for Ascension. And Paul Brogan is here, who was brought up very much Catholic, and he sheds a lot of light on something, because I never went to a Catholic school. And you went to St. John Regional or St. John?
No, St. Peter's.
Oh, St. Peter's.
St. Peter's,
right.
Yes, for a grammar school, and
Yeah.
then Bishop Brady for high school.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Well, wasn't that kind of because there was St. Peter's, St.
Yes.
John's.
Sacred Heart also had a grammar school.
And I still thought that Immaculate Heart had one, but I guess it was more like a preschool or something.
I think so.
Because I remember when we were in 6th grade at Dame School, we had, what's it called, patrols there. And the 6th graders all had badges, and they walked the kids.
Oh, right. Yes. Safety
and,
patrol.
Yeah, safety patrol.
Yes.
And I know that we had one up here to Immaculate Heart, but it was for catechism. I guess it was for catechism.
Well, you had a convent here, though, and you had sisters up here.
There were.
So I don't know where they taught or what exactly.
Because this building is like a school. It's like
It is. It's set up exactly like a school.
But,
and I'll look back and see. There would be something, I'm sure, in the Concord Monitor years ago when the paper actually covered things locally that would talk about, because it just grew so quickly. I mean, I still remember when Father Bonner and the church first came, and then they added on to it because the public response was so overwhelming up here. And so I'll look and see if I can find, out. But at one point,
maybe it was Immaculate Conception I'm thinking of.
In Pennacook.
They may have had one up there.
They did have a school there.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking it was them. Because of the two Immaculates, maybe that's what it was. But yeah, I mean, it was quite the thing, for years.
There were over 1,500 students in parochial school just in Concord.
Yeah.
Between all of them, and that's a large number.
Of course it is.
When the community was a lot smaller.
Yeah.
But it was I know we've discussed it previously, but it was a very good foundation for everything else, because it being a private school, the teachers could discipline in a totally different way, as far as you could get booted out, and that was it. That was the final word on it.
Yeah.
And there was a certain standard you had to be held to. The positive was that you wore uniforms.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter whether your family had money or not. There was none of that competition for who had the best clothes and whether they bought them at this place.
They're all hip,
Exactly.
I mean, boy, and I didn't see that in the elementary school that I went to, because not at that point. It was back in '64 when I saw it, because when the Beatles came in, every boy had to have the Beatle haircut.
Yes.
The clothing, the flowered shirts. Eventually, there came the flowered shirts with the white collar, But see, when you went to parochial, you didn't have that. You stayed as in a uniform type setting.
And it meant that nobody stood out, which was good. You were all treated equally.
Yep.
And you were expected to adhere to a certain level of discipline. So it wasn't really the worst thing in the world for us. And as you mentioned about May in the Catholic schools, the entire month was very celebratory in honoring the Blessed Mother, because it was the month of Mary.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, one of the differences with the Catholic faith and other faiths, including Episcopalian. They don't look at Mary in quite the same way. We don't worship Mary. We honor her.
Yeah.
And we will sometimes ask her to intercede on our behalf if we're praying for something in particular. But there's a lot of misconception that, oh no, those Catholics worship Mary and all of, and I know that part of that is probably the result of the fact that she appeared to the children in Fatima, to Bernadette in Lourdes, and that, you know.
In fact, I'm glad you mentioned that, because this last weekend they had the actual statue, I guess, of Mary at Lourdes, I think. Or, no,
Fatima.
Fatima, that was it. Because they've invited families here at Immaculate Heart if they would like to have her for 1 week to sign this out and bring it back, and you could do that, and there was a certain prayer you had to say every day with it or whatever. And it's quite a little statue. I was surprised, and but that was in May. I guess that's when she was seen by the kids in Portugal, I guess.
It was a small town outside. I mean, Fatima was a small town in Portugal, yes. And she appeared to them a number of times, and then finally there was a miracle the last time where the sun moved around. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people were there and witnessed the sun moving around and changing colors, and that was what resulted eventually in the Vatican deeming it an actual miracle. And then the waters in Fatima, in the grotto that came up, because Mary said where the water would be, and it indeed was, supposedly has healing powers. People go there and bathe in the waters, and they find tuberculosis and cripple and other things are miraculously healed. So but the whole month, beginning with May 1st, we would have a May processional carrying a statue of Mary, and then crown her, as the song, "O Mary, we crown thee with blossoms today, Queen of the angels, Queen of the May." And so she was very important during that entire month. The Ascension didn't always occur during the month of May, because it all depends on when Easter falls. Sometimes that would be at the end of April. But this time, Ascension Thursday happens to fall in May.
May 25th, isn't it? I think it's right around May 25th, if I remember right.
Okay.
Without looking in the missal.
And that, of course, is a holy day of obligation.
Yeah.
And a very important milestone.
But see, this is where I get mixed up. Because that's the day, supposedly, he ascended into
heaven, body and soul.
Yeah, but then you've got Pentecost. Isn't that when he did the Holy Spirit?
The Holy Spirit. It was Holy Ghost for a long time.
Yeah,
and came and blessed the apostles, I believe, is Pentecost.
Because then you got the Trinity Sunday.
Yes.
Then you've got the blood of Corpus Christi, I think it's Corpus Christi. And then that's it. Now then we go back into ordinary time.
Yes. And then, of course, later on, there's the Feast of the Assumption.
Oh, yeah.
Because Mary also, like Jesus, ascended into heaven, body and soul.
Yeah.
And I believe that they were the only two that ascended that way. You don't hear much about the passing of St. Joseph when that occurred.
No, I never did.
Or, I mean, he had passed away prior to, of course, Palm Sunday and the crucifixion and all of that. But there's never really, that I recall, in Scripture, a specific time when he passed away. Because Christ began his public life at 30. And he only, for 3 years, I believe it was, that he went out and preached before he died. And before that, he was a carpenter, and they talk about the son of a carpenter, etc. So that's a very good question, though, about St. Joseph and where he was buried or anything else. That's not really clear.
I've said this before. I said you never hear anything about him, where he's buried or anything.
No.
It's like he just
Right.
disappeared.
I mean, they're beautiful. I know St. Peter's used to have a beautiful statue of St. Joseph. On each side of the altar, one side was Mary, one side was Joseph, and there were the votive candles in front of them, and suggested prayers that you could say to them.
We still have a statue of him
Out here
in here
is gorgeous of Mary, the statue you have.
But there is one of Joseph, I think, inside.
Ah, okay. In the church?
Yeah, in the church. I'm pretty sure there is. But it's true. You never hear. Now this one here is I bought all these books, and this is favorite prayers to Saint Joseph. Now I don't know if that's his father or what, but I
would assume that. I mean, there's another Joseph they write about, Joseph of Arimathea, but since the picture in here is of Joseph with the Christ child, then this clearly is Saint Joseph, which, is.
And then you got John the Baptist. We never hear much word, but he was beheaded.
He was beheaded, and he was prior to Christ. That he was out preaching and incurred the wrath. But after that, I mean, he's sort of, as children, when we were taught catechism, he was sort of the first martyr that you really heard of was John the Baptist. And then, of course, most of the apostles were martyred afterwards.
Oh,
and that's when you got into the whole, the Christians and the lions and all of the other things that happened. And, I mean, I can only imagine what a horrible time that was for people. I mean, to be so fearful of practicing your religion that, you ran the risk of death.
Yeah, because you figure that they had to have been in, well, I'm guessing that they had to have been in their 30s or maybe 40s, but
not much
30s,
more.
No. Yeah.
Because they were all relatively young. St. Peter always seemed to be the oldest.
Yeah.
And Christ said to him, upon this rock I shall build my church. But he seemed, but it's sort of hard to tell. I mean, like he might have been 40-ish or something when Christ said to come follow me. Yeah. But then, of course, it was only a 3-year period before Christ was crucified.
I know.
And of course, in those days, people didn't live as long, so the apostles could have been younger than they appeared to be. They could have been in their 20s or early 30s. Yeah. But most of them didn't live a long time because no one was. There were so many angry people at
you figure one of them who turned Jesus in killed himself.
Yes, Judas Iscariot killed himself for the pieces of silver, and he threw them down, and that was the end. And he felt such remorse. But
it had to have been quite a time. I just can't imagine.
No, living that way. And. I mean, because in comparison, even though there are places in the world where people are persecuted for their religious beliefs, I don't think it's on the scale that it was then, where so much of the world was against followers of Christ.
Oh, I know.
And but it was difficult. And I remember as a child, it was frightening to read about all of these apostles being martyred. And I remember asking when I was 5 or 6, does that mean all of us who, believe in Christ are going to be martyred? Because, as a child, you don't understand what's the difference between then, and now. Yeah. But, the Catholic faith in Concord was just, I mean, when you realize that for a town of under 30,000 when we were growing up, you had so many churches with so many parishioners in it. I think, in fact, I know, I read this someplace, the Catholic faith was the largest, denomination in Concord by far, because you had Sacred Heart, St. John, St. Peter's. St. Peter's had probably, 12 to 1,500 parishioners.
Wow.
St. John's was larger than that.
Yeah,
Sacred Heart had, I think, about 1,000.
Yeah.
Incredibly loyal people. And then, of course, up here. So I'm sure there were probably 4,000 to 5,000. And there were no other faiths except congregation that had more than one church in town, because you had the North Congregational and the South Congregational.
Yeah,
but otherwise,
you had East Congregational.
Oh, that's
and
true.
The West
Yes.
Congregational.
But they didn't have the size parish.
No.
But and the others, I mean, you had one Episcopal church, one Methodist, one Unitarian.
Well, you had basically, though, Paul. I think you had. Well, there was 2 or 3 Episcopal churches in Concord at one time.
Were there really?
Because I was told that you had Grace Episcopal over in East Concord.
Oh, okay.
Then St. Paul's in downtown Concord.
Yes.
Then there was one down on Broadway, St. Luke's.
Really?
Or Saint, yeah. In fact, Temple Beth Jacob.
Yes.
That used
Yes.
to be an Episcopal church.
Oh.
And then there was another one up on North State Street further up. But I can't remember the name of it. So, and then they just kind of all gave out.
And all went into
and then
one.
Pennacook had one, St. Mary's up there. And that went out. So, yeah, it used to be. Well, I mean, it seems like St. Paul's. It was like the church
the
of Concord.
center. Well, that's where
Everything
the bishop would always.
They would all.
know.
I mean, even compared to Catholic or Baptist or anything else, I mean, it seemed like everything always centered around St. Paul's.
Yes. That's where
Good Friday has their big 3-hour
Right.
service, mass, or whatever, and that included clergy from all denominations there. You know, and it was 3 hours. I can't imagine the 3-hour service.
No.
But you know, it's interesting how they've got all those denominations. But
And the Greek Orthodox Church used to be a
Orthodox,
different faith.
yeah,
Because the Greek Orthodox Church was on another street for years, and that was something else, but I don't remember what faith that was.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Concord had a very strong religious community for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's,
And now it's like you've got all these churches I've never even heard of before. But I know the Catholic one, they seem to be holding their own, although I know as I read the paper that there are now a lot of different branches or whatever, and it's like, but Catholics still seem to be holding their own somewhat.
Right.
For a while there was a little bit of a rivalry between Trinity Baptist over there on Clinton Street and the Catholic Church, but then I think it was just the newness or whatever, but things have kind of, I think, have quieted down a little bit. But and of course there was a change of priests from. You said Father Bono was he was a reverend up here.
Oh, people just
I mean, my father used to talk about him.
Yes. Oh, he was a very charismatic person, and as a speaker, he had an amazing ability to make you feel like he was speaking just to you. Yeah. It wasn't standing up there talking about money or it wasn't that type of a sermon or homily. It was very warm. There was humor, which for a lot of people was the first time a priest making a joke, or people didn't know how to respond because you're not supposed to laugh in church.
Oh, I know.
That kind of thing. But plus he ran Camp Fatima, and so he was a presence there in the summertime, and he was one of those rare priests that if it was a 90-degree hot humid day, he would get up and say, "It's too hot for you to sit here and listen to me give a sermon today, so God bless you all." And he wouldn't do a 10 or 15-minute sermon. He was very in tune with people's feelings. And so I went to Camp Fatima a couple of times, and it was a very beautifully run. At the church, your parish would help pay for you to go there at the time, if you wanted to, and so it was it was the thing. The girls had Camp Bernadette, and for the boys it was Camp Fatima, and it was in 2-week cycles, and there were 4 sessions in the summer of 2 weeks each, and they were always booked because and every day you started with mass. And but much of the rest of the time was just like a regular camp kind of setting. But it was another way. I mean, people were not afraid to participate and express their faith, and it was just, I don't know. I guess people that were Catholic were very proud of being Catholic, and it was, just a totally different time. And it's unfortunate that some of that has gone away because, attendance is down. They say more people identify as, say, Catholic or something else, but they don't act upon it the way that we used to. Mass, it's at St. John's. They are fairly full only because there's no Sacred Heart or St. Peter's, but if you didn't have, if you still had those open, you'd be, half filled.
Do you suppose it's because they've loosened up, like every Friday had to be no meat on Friday? Mass was in Latin. I mean, I hear all the older ones speak sometimes, and I wonder, are they missing that part of the church?
Well, there was more pomp and ceremony in a lot of ways. And I mean, I thought as a child, it was really cool to be talking in Latin, even if you didn't know what it meant. But I mean, I had friends that thought, wow, can I come to your church? Because you people don't speak English. And they thought it was really terrific. And we sang in Latin, and, songs like Tantum ergo sacramento veneremur, and, all of these things that we did. And it was more, I think there was a mystery or an aura about it, and it made it, for a lot of people, more significant when you set aside that hour a week to go to church. I mean, it felt like it was very, very important because there was a reverence to it. You didn't have people, now we'll offer each other the sign of peace, shaking hands and doing that. So it was a more formal. And I think for some people, someone told me, a former nun told me that she left the convent because when they took away the habits, all she was a social worker who didn't get paid very much and didn't get the respect she had gotten from the rest of the world because of the habit.
Exactly. You're right.
Because even if you hated the Catholic Church or thought it was a joke or something like that, if a nun was approaching on the street in a habit, you quieted down, you nodded your head, tipped your hat, and said, hello, sister. There was a respect that was immediate, even before they earned it by what they did, but just from appearance. And she said, I could do the same kind of work, social work, and make a decent salary if that's all I'm going to do, and I'm not going to get that level of respect anymore.
I heard that too. That some of the nuns wish that they would go back because it was. Now it's like,
Well, Mother Angelica, God rest her, on her show that used to be on, but for a while she got rid of the habit. She just had a modified habit. And ratings actually went down, and in her last years she went back to the full habit.
I did
and that made a difference. People watching didn't want to see her real hair or all of that. They wanted a nun, and so whatever it took, So I think that has had an impact on vocations, at least. And again, I think that without the kind of Catholic education that we had back then, people don't tend to want to enter into religious life.
No.
It was talked about when we were kids that the greatest gift your family could have is if one of your children became a sister or a priest.
Yes, I heard that too.
And I wanted to become a sister. No, I didn't. No, just kidding.
Oh, you wanted to go to Sister Paula.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
No, but it was just something that was really important. And because you were surrounded by them in school, you had a certain level of respect that, for that life.
But that didn't really happen, though.
No, it wasn't always but still, it's something that's changed.
I can still, when I think of, one I miss too is Father Lauer down at St. John's. I didn't turn a convert until 1985, and Monsignor Murray was still there. No, he wasn't there. He had been transferred to Hudson, and then he ultimately left the church and married a sister from the order down there. But Father Dick Lauer was the one down there then, and it was, he was just so personal. I mean, he was just so funny. Well, one day after I converted and all this jazz, I was sitting down near the front or something, and I got him laughing. He said afterwards, "You devil, don't ever get me laughing like that again." I said, "You didn't have to laugh, but just his spirit was, he was just so funny."
Yes.
And I'll never forget that. He got laughed on the altar so bad, but poor guy, rest his soul now, he passed on. They found him, but...
Now, after you converted, did you go to St. John's or did you go to IHM?
No, we went to St. John's, and after Father Gorski left, and Monsignor Watson was in down there, and he was different. Then they had another change of clergy down there. Watson was sent somewhere else, I guess. I'm not sure what happened to him. Gorski went to Merrimack. That's what he went to, Merrimack, and had his own church. And then they brought in another set of them. Father Mark Gagne was in for a while, and then he got transferred up here. And when he got transferred up here, we transferred up here with, not with him, but we followed him. He was a young guy, and he was good.
He was very involved in the show, too.
Yeah, and we lived up, we lived up on the Heights anyway. It just made more sense.
It did, yes.
Oh, yes, he was in those musicals, and oh my gosh, I'll never forget how he brought the house down, him and the lady, Sharon Caparello. They were two elderly patients in wheelchairs, and I know the ding ding, but they were trying to reach each other.
Yes.
And they just couldn't. And it was so funny. The whole city auditorium just went up in laughter because here's these two patients trying to manage. Well, Paul, thank you so much for coming on. And
my pleasure.
It's almost like a different type of show for the both of us.
It is.
But
it is.
It's good because of your knowledge of the church, and it helps me sometimes too. So we've been talking with Paul Brogan on Faith Speaks, and we hope to hear from more of you. If you'd like to come on and share your religion, we'd love to hear from you. So with that in mind, have a great week. Enjoy the nice weather, and always don't forget to say your prayers to Jesus every day, your Lord, and also remember this is Mary's special month. So on Faith Speaks, WICX 102.7 Hope FM, Catholic Radio, I'm Dick Patten.